Welcome to Capitol Catch-Up, the podcast that brings you a clear look at what's happening on Capitol Hill. I'm Victor.
And I'm Lenny. Today we're diving deep into a slate of recent resolutions, bills, and congressional actions that have been moving through both chambers. We'll explain what each measure does, why it matters, and how it could affect everyday Americans.
Let's start with the two Senate resolutions that commemorate World Press Freedom Day. Senate Resolution 715 passed this year, and its predecessor, Senate Resolution 204, passed last year. Both recognize the escalating threats to press freedom and freedom of speech around the globe. They highlight how a free press underpins democracy, fuels economic prosperity, and keeps citizens informed.
The language in both resolutions is stark. They condemn the killing, injury, and imprisonment of journalists, call for the unconditional release of any journalist wrongfully detained, and urge the President and the Secretary of State to keep press freedom at the forefront of U.S. foreign policy. For Americans, these resolutions signal that the United States will continue to advocate for journalist safety abroad, which can translate into diplomatic pressure on regimes that target reporters.
Moving to the House, we have House Concurrent Resolution 96, a resolution expressing support for law enforcement officers. It praises the risks officers take to protect communities, criticizes policies that aim to defund police departments, and pushes back against sanctuary city policies that limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. While it's a symbolic gesture, it reflects the ongoing national conversation about public safety and policing.
Symbolic, yes, but it also sets the tone for future legislation that could affect funding, training, and community police relations. Now let's shift to some substantive bills that have been introduced.
First up is the Cashless Bail Reporting Act, House Bill 5625. This bill would require the Attorney General to compile and publish a list of states and local jurisdictions that allow cashless bail, meaning release on personal recognizance or unsecured bonds, for violent or public disorder offenses. The list would be released within a year of enactment and updated annually. The goal is transparency, giving the public insight into how bail practices vary across the country.
Transparency can drive reform. If citizens see that certain jurisdictions are using cashless bail for serious offenses, they may push for changes to ensure public safety while also protecting the rights of the accused.
Next, we have a series of bills aimed at curbing the naming of federal properties after sitting presidents. The Senate introduced the Stop Executive Renaming for Vanity and Ego Act, Senate Bill 3622, commonly called the SERV Act. It would prohibit naming any federal building, land, or asset after a sitting president, and would require the removal of any existing names that honor a current president, using federal funds to restore original names.
The House introduced a companion measure, House Bill 7039, also titled the Stop Executive Renaming for Vanity and Ego Act of 2026. It mirrors the Senate version, banning naming, renaming, or redesignating federal properties after a sitting president, and prohibiting the use of federal funds for such purposes. Both chambers are concerned about the perception of vanity and the potential politicization of federal landmarks.
In addition, the House introduced the PROTECT Act, House Bill 8522, which specifically targets naming federal properties after former President Donald J. Trump. It would prohibit any new naming or renaming in his honor and would require the removal of any existing designations bearing his name. This reflects a broader debate about how we commemorate public figures.
Shifting to resource management, the Offshore Parity Act of 2026, House Bill 8542, seeks to give Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama greater control over expanded submerged lands off their coasts. The bill would delegate authority over oil, gas, and other energy activities, as well as fisheries management, to the states, provided they meet conditions such as adequate resources and effective administration. It also outlines revenue collection, liability, and bond transfer provisions.
For coastal communities, this could mean more local input on offshore drilling and fishing regulations, potentially boosting state revenues, while also raising concerns about environmental oversight. The bill tries to balance state autonomy with federal safeguards.
On the topic of recreation and safety, there are two related boating bills. The House introduced House Bill 8550, allowing states to require payment of state boating fees as a condition for issuing a vessel number and to collect those fees alongside other registration fees. The revenue must be used for boating safety, search and rescue, and combating aquatic invasive species. The Senate introduced a companion, Senate Bill 3985, called the State Boating Act, with essentially the same provisions. Both aim to give states flexibility to fund essential boating programs.
That could translate into better safety infrastructure on lakes and rivers and more resources to protect ecosystems from invasive species, benefits that directly affect recreational boaters and coastal residents.
Turning to technology and national security, Senate Bill 4402 requires the Attorney General and the Director of National Intelligence to produce a report on the use of artificial intelligence, with access to unminimized information collected under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978. The report must detail the AI system's purpose, testing, evaluation, and access protocols. Future AI systems seeking such access would need a joint assessment by the Attorney General and the Director of National Intelligence. An unclassified version of the report will be posted publicly on the Department of Justice and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence websites.
This bill addresses growing concerns about AI's role in handling sensitive surveillance data. By mandating oversight and public transparency, it aims to protect civil liberties while ensuring that intelligence agencies use AI responsibly.
Now let's talk about a few bills that touch on specific communities. The Fireworks for Freedom Act, House Bill 8593, proposes a temporary waiver of certain federal and state fireworks regulations during the United States' 250th anniversary year. It would allow maximum public participation in fireworks displays while preserving local authority over safety standards. The waiver would expire on December 31, 2026, and would not preempt any local laws.
For many Americans, fireworks are a cherished tradition. This bill seeks to make the bicentennial celebrations more accessible, but it also leaves safety oversight to local jurisdictions, which is crucial to prevent accidents.
The Kenya Merit Renewing Our Pact Act of 2026, House Bill 8524, focuses on civilian federal employees who are exposed to toxic burn pits. It creates a presumption that certain diseases are caused by that exposure, making it easier for affected workers to receive workers' compensation. The Secretary of Labor must maintain a list of qualifying diseases and submit a report on implementation. This addresses long-standing health concerns for veterans and civilian staff who served in hazardous environments.
The Public Lands Workforce Stability Act, House Bill 8523, aims to protect jobs within the Department of the Interior and the United States Forest Service. It prohibits any reduction in force or involuntary separation without prior approval from congressional committees, effective until September 30, 2030. The protection covers competitive service, accepted service, and senior executive service employees, with exceptions only for misconduct, delinquency, or poor performance.
By safeguarding these federal workers, the bill seeks to maintain continuity in managing public lands, which affects everything from national parks to wildfire response, issues that directly impact many Americans.
Finally, the Build America Buy America Compliance Act, Senate Bill 4393, strengthens the existing Build America Buy America Act. It requires federal agencies to submit annual reports on how well they are meeting domestic content preferences for infrastructure projects, identifies programs that have not fully complied, and seeks to close loopholes that allow waivers. The intent is to boost domestic manufacturing, create jobs, and reduce reliance on imported materials in federally funded projects.
For communities awaiting new bridges, roads, or public transit, this could mean more locally sourced materials and, ideally, more jobs in the construction sector.
In the congressional record for May 7, 2026, the House convened under Speaker pro tempore Robert J. Whitman. The day featured routine business, a prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, executive communications about national emergencies in Iraq and the Central African Republic, and committee reports, including a bill to increase education and training vouchers for foster youth. Numerous public bills and resolutions were introduced, covering veterans, affairs, foreign policy, and economic development. While there were no major debates recorded, the day set the stage for many of the measures we just discussed.
To sum up, we've covered press freedom resolutions, law enforcement support, bail transparency, anti-renaming legislation, offshore resource management, boating fee reforms, AI oversight, fireworks celebrations, burn pit health benefits, public lands workforce stability, and a push for domestic content in infrastructure. Each of these items has a direct line to everyday Americans, whether it's protecting journalists abroad, ensuring safer boating, preserving jobs on public lands, or keeping more of our tax dollars in American factories.
Listeners should keep an eye on the progress of these bills as they move through committees and onto the floor. Watch for votes on the SERV Acts in both chambers, the AI report requirement in Senate Bill 4402, and the implementation timeline for the Build America, Buy America Compliance Act. Also, stay tuned for any amendments to the Cashless Bail Reporting Act and the Offshore Parity Act, as those could have immediate impacts on state policies.
Thanks for joining us on Capital Catch Up. We'll be back with more updates as Congress continues its work. Stay informed and have a great week.